Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for this panel. I am ASHWATY CHENNAT. I am the program manager and festival curator, as well as a dance artist myself. And so my hopes for this dialogue was to share what it's been like as a dance artist, and also being one that has a niche kind of space that we occupy as South Asian dance artists, and kind of how we're navigating not only COVID, but how we navigate our artistic work in general. So we want to pay homage to not only what we've been doing over the last 3 months, but also our work as a whole in our career. So I'm going to introduce our panelists. We have TULI, and we have Neha. You both are muted. Could we each kind of introduce ourselves and our work, how we introduce ourselves in the log line, say screenwriting. In screenwriting, you have like a 2-sentence kind of summary of action that's going to happen in the movie, but how would you describe that for your own work? I'll start with me. ASHWATY CHENNAT, trained in ballet and Bharatanatyam, and grew up doing folk and classical dance forms in a very musical household, and had no other choice but to express herself through these mediums as she grew. Tuli? Okay. Hi, I'm Tuli.
In terms of dance history, I grew up with primarily ballet, classical ballet, trained in the Russian method, and simultaneously trained in Bharatanatyam just for a couple years, and continued my dance education. I went to school for dance at University of Illinois, and there I was introduced to various styles there, more modern, contemporary work. And here I am just trying to make sense of it all.
Neha?
Hi, I'm Neha, Neha Khosla, and my background actually really similar and cool to be in a panel with this kind of intercultural background. But yeah, dance background, started out Bharatanatyam when I was like 4 with Pranita Aunty, and then ballet starting when I was like around 10. And then I did the whole kind of competing in the trio of ballet, jazz, tap that like a lot of companies in the suburbs do. So that was my primary training. But then I actually kind of shifted in high school onwards to focusing pretty much on hip hop and how that interacts with Indian dance forms. So Bhangra, Bollywood, and Bharatanatyam were kind of my Indian areas, and then hip hop and more recently Afrobeat and dancehall and reggaeton have been my interests.
Thank you for sharing a bit about your background. Yeah, we are, I think, an unusual group here, because not only did we have training in multiple forms, but we're all continuing practice in our own ways, which I know we often lament that many of our peers didn't continue to create work in a professional setting, even though many of them were super talented, and yeah, I mean, it lives in memories and such, but yeah, I feel kind of humbled that I got to continue on. Yeah, so today I'd like to talk a little bit about how quarantine has affected our creative processes. And I know that the festival provided a space for both of you to know that your work was going to be presented, which is a big thing for performing artists. And also, my intention was to make you all feel as if whatever you presented was welcome, because our resources have changed, and our mental health has changed over this time. So I'd love to hear from both of you, kind of your journey during COVID as an artist. Tuli, do you want to begin?
For this festival, oh, I am. Am I good now?
No, we can hear you. Can you put back a little bit?
Okay, I'll just start over. So let me just speak real quick to what my original intention was for this festival, before it moved to the virtual platform. Last year, I was one of Lynx Hall's commission residents, and I was very it was an incredible experience to be able to create a solo, and the title of it is called Bangalime, which means Bengali girl, and it was a solo that explored, and I dedicated to exploring what the experience is being in the body of a first generation American, Bengali American, South Asian. I don't know. There's so just kind of like unpacking what that was. And so, yeah, this festival was another opportunity, again, to kind of piggyback off of what I first presented and unpack even more, an unpacking of what I first unpacked, I guess, if that makes sense. But like those experiences, just trying to focus a little more. I feel like that first solo was kind of like 10 ideas that
Sure.
Emerged in 30 minutes. So it was overwhelming. Anyways, so when COVID hit and we were all sheltering in place, I did, of course, want to be a part of this festival, but I wasn't really sure how that was going to be. Because I felt, I did revisit like footage of that first performance, and I was like, man, this just like, I don't feel anything. I feel nothing. And there was no urge to be in that creative space where I knew I was going to be amongst people. I knew that I would have family members like witnessing me in person, close family friends witnessing this moment of unpacking. So that's when improvisation came in, and ASHWATY paired me with fantastic musicians. And so it's such a unique experience and opportunity to work in real time, even though I am alone, but I was not alone in this practice of uncertainty, or just like, it was just a rehearsal, honestly. What everyone got to see was a first rehearsal, and first rehearsals are always so exciting when it comes to creation, especially when you're not creating alone. So yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah, that was beautiful to watch. This happened mid-May. Tuli and Chetan Ananth collaborated in real time for the first time in front of an audience. And Tuli hadn't been performing for some time, but like, you went on. He did not stop playing. And you that was like a 40-minute dance piece, and that's like a whole dance work, and you were just in it, and that was very exciting to watch. It was very energizing, and I think what was so exciting for me is that of course Chetan's music is so atmospheric and transports you, but like your energy matched it, and it was just, I don't know, I thought it transcended the screen. I mean, we've seen a lot. I mean, like a lot of large companies are now streaming their work, but you know that it's happening like in a proscenium theater, and there's an audience there, and there's all these editing angles. It doesn't feel live. It feels like you're watching something taped. And I think the experience of watching you both collaborate for the first time, like not knowing each other's style, was just, it was exciting. Yeah.
Yes. Exciting and nerve-wracking. I was like, I really hope I'm doing this music justice right now. Just because like, I think in that moment we like, or at least for me, I'll speak for myself, I just like recognize this incredible talent and like this great responsibility I had, not just to match it necessarily, but like to really take it in, and also like how can, like just building a relationship with someone that is, you know, so like practiced and, you know, just they really know, they love what they do. So it was incredible to share that. But yeah.
Thank you, TULI. Neha, do you want to share a little bit about your experience creating?
Sure. So I first just wanted to say, TULI, like I resonate with so much of what you shared, and like just kind of the experience of this being this really like a blessed opportunity to have like a first rehearsal or like a first rough draft sort of thing feels really real to me too, because I think as artists you're constantly iterating and reiterating, and like you never stop iterating. It's just kind of like a constant process of evolving your work. And one of the things we can get stuck in as artists is this desire for perfection, which is like ultimately totally at odds with ever putting your work out. So this festival was just so welcome in that it created, like you said, it both a deadline and an opportunity to put our stuff out there. So I really appreciated that. For me, the impact of COVID and shelter in place has been such an interestingly timed one. And I'll take it back a little bit to answer this question, to kind of how we introduced ourselves as dancers. So I'm in medical school, and my work in medicine and all my research in medicine that started back in college. In college, I studied the social psychology of racial and gender discrimination. And so my research has been in how it is that we see women and men with the same credentials treated differently in the workplace, and Black and white individuals with the same credentials treated differently in the hospital and in the workplace. And I came to medical school with this intention of, you know, I want to understand what it is. As a dancer, you think about the body a lot, and you have a visceral feeling that trauma resides in the body, because you think about your body and you look at it, you know, all day, every day. And the experience, like TULI started mentioning with her project, of being raised in the U.S. As an othered body, or a body that doesn't fit in with the default, my experience was that my self-esteem really suffered. Like my self-esteem and mental health were really low, and I wanted to understand how it was that the experiences of chronic discrimination reside in the body. And so that has been my intellectual activism and my academic activism. And my dancing was always a healing process for me. It was always the way that I got my self-esteem back, kind of replenished the self-confidence that had been like nicked down over the week. And so actually, right before coronavirus hit at the beginning of 2020, late in 2019, I decided to take a pause from medical school and fully pursue my art as a form of activism, and to bring together those two parts of me. So for me, it was like a really fascinating timing. It was like the universe being like, hey, here you go. Like everyone suddenly cares about health a lot more. And then, you know, national attention on Black Lives Matter, everyone also cares about that a lot more now than they have in the past. So I have to say, for me, The creative aspect of it definitely required me to jump through some hoops. I know all, especially movement artists, have been doing weird things in their houses, trying to like move around furniture and make like blank walls happen so you can dance. So that's been a limbo. But the part that's been really beautiful has been like a space to make the home my studio at a time when I actually decided to leave my like day job to do that fully. So that was kind of wonderful for me.
Thank you for sharing, Neha. Yeah, you made a very big choice in the last several months, and it's been exciting to watch how you are constantly creating, and you constantly are sharing work in the virtual space. You were already kind of doing that before, and I don't want to speak for you, but you were in Mumbai not too long ago, and we're creating work that would ultimately be presented digitally, which allows for global viewing and collaboration. And so you're kind of familiar with that space, which is also fantastic because I think that's where a lot of activism has happened over the last 6 years. I made up a number, but in the last several years, like it's mobilization happens on social media. It's accessible. People can voice what they're feeling, concerns for their community. They can organize, and it seems like bringing your dance to that space makes so much sense as using art for activism. Can you speak more to how you are framing things in the virtual space to accomplish that?
Yeah, specifically about like going virtual or doing things kind of digitally.
Yeah, how you see maybe a relationship between art as activism and the virtual space intersecting.
Yeah, definitely. So with regards to the question of art as activism, I actually just yesterday read this awesome quote, speaking of digitally, on Instagram, that I felt really encompassed what I feel in my heart. Art and activism have to do with each other, but sometimes we don't really have the words for. What it said was, the role of the artist is to make the revolution irresistible. So the role of the artist is to make the revolution irresistible. And I found that so amazing because I was like, what is the role of art? Like the role of art to me and for me is both this healing, but also living a fantasy and creating a reality that doesn't exist on earth all the time, but allowing the reality in your head to exist in your body for a while. And so for me, art and activism, I mean, even though it has taken me a while, a few years now, to conceptualize how to bring them together, and I'm still trying to learn how to do that, they just, I mean, they're meant for each other, I mean, you go back to activism in the US, I mean, way before the civil rights movement, but which we now label the civil rights movement. I mean, it started with artists, it started with people creating inflammatory cartoons, paintings, poetry, because I think art allows us to do things that are not as acceptable in the day-to-day world. So for example, in musical theater and in theater in general, you see kind of overt expressions of sexuality in a way that we're not really allowed to in our day-to-day life. We're very like sexually repressed, I would say, in our society. But yeah, art allows you this space where it's almost more acceptable to push the boundaries like that. So that's the way I see art and activism coming together, is both creating that aesthetic irresistibility of it and by pushing boundaries in a way that you can't in maybe normal life, as like a normal human. And then the digital space, yeah, like I'm so glad you mentioned my experience in India just now. I was there from December to February of this year, and so lucky to have gotten to go and come back before I wouldn't have been able to go at all. It made me realize, I mean, now I have friends like in Bombay, and like some of them tuned in to our show yesterday. And one thing is, they couldn't have tuned into our show if we hadn't had a virtual show. So I have just been thinking so much about how bringing art to the digital space has, especially for, like, we've been talking about, like, minority people and people with othered bodies who maybe in their immediate surroundings don't have a lot of people to connect with. They really need to search beyond. I was reading this really interesting study yesterday about the role of social media in different people's lives based on their racial background. And what it found was basically about 40% of white people said that they use social media to connect with other people who understand them. And among Black and Latinx people, that number was 65%. So it just goes to show that particularly, it's been my experience that I've found a lot of people who understand me on social media, because there's just not a lot of bodies of color that are doing art for activism. And so I think it's those people that need the digital space the most to find people whose souls connect with them. So to me, I think, like, this is a revolution, you know, like the virtual space has opened up a world that can feel each other's hearts in a way that we haven't before. And it makes you not feel like a minority anymore, honestly. Like, I don't feel as alone when it comes to sharing virtually.
Yeah. Definitely. I think this also touches back on the fact that we are very rarely occupy spaces with similar, with artists who have similar backgrounds to us, right? And you were mentioning earlier, Neha, that most of the artists that you've collaborated with, you met through Instagram. And I think that is very exciting. This idea that, again, I said earlier that we don't have a lot of peers that we grew up with that continued artistic expression professionally, if as a South Asian American. But we're here and they're there, and it's a matter of connecting and finding them. And I think definitely media has allowed us, or social media has allowed us to do that. And TULI, as you've been navigating identity through your work, do you think you could show us a little bit from your previous work? I know you have a video ready for us. You're muted.
Thank you. Okay. I have, yeah, it's ready to go. Is my screen shared already? Do you see it? Okay. It's short, 3 minutes.
Is there audio connected?
This part's actually in silence. ASHWATY. Okay. It's always strange watching your work. But what should I just speak? I guess, okay, I'll just talk about it. Well, I do want to address that, like, well, now that I'm seeing something that was done live, I'm like trying to recall those feelings.
Yeah.
What it was like to dance for an audience. So that's a thing that we're all, you know, learning to be with.
Yeah. That's kind of why we perform. At least it's a big part. It's a big part of why we perform. This audience energy, the lights, the stage, the space.
Right. That has always been true for my performance career since I was, you know, 5 years old, is like for that audience, like appreciation, or not even an audience, but like my mom is watching me right now, you know, something like that. But I just speaking to like how we, you know, harness that energy in the space, like everyone's breath, everyone's gaze, like everyone has their own type of gaze, like how they're taking it in. And you notice that as a performer. At least I have found ways to incorporate that into my performance. Like, yes, I lose myself a little bit, but I'm still very much in tune with what's in my surroundings. And that has definitely changed over time. Before it was like, no one's out there, it's just me and the spotlight, and that's all that matters. But that has obviously changed with how my work has changed. So yeah, like how to get that energy when you're in a space alone is, I don't know. But I think we all do know it's somewhere deep inside, and it comes out. Like if you really truly love to perform and share your story, it'll come through. But it's that much harder because you're your own, like, you know, you're the person, the voice in your head is what's keeping you going, in some ways. So yeah, I felt in those moments of the virtual performances, it was very internal, but also I did know that I was performing for someone, and as a performer, you can just turn that on. But I felt a little more like connected as I externally represented what I was truly feeling. So I might even say that this is one of my most honest performances, like the virtual performances. I was like, there was no other external body that was influencing my movement. I mean, of course, you know, it was a different type of influence.
That's very exciting. You know what this, okay, so I've always been jealous of visual artists, right? Because they're not, I mean, yes, their work can be presented, but sometimes it isn't, but they just create like with the materials around them, and they envision something, and maybe they're feeling it like as a performance, as an expression as they're doing it. Maybe it's a plan that they're executing with extreme detail. But for me, it's very hard to create without knowing that it's going to be presented, which is which is interesting because I've had a lot of conversations with musicians like Chetan. He is so fine in his solitude. He's just practicing and he's refining his craft. He sent me this video. He just sends me little audio clips all the time, which are amazing. But he sent me this video of him singing and playing tabla at the same time. And he's like, new skill that I gained during quarantine. Like, I wish. Yeah, it's very, very hard for me to continue my practice at this time without sharing it with other bodies. So it's very exciting to hear that you got to a place of like authentic expression without that. And I'm glad I got to witness it. We all got to witness it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm going to share a video too. So I was also a part of another virtual festival at this time, Pivot Arts. And Pivot Arts is a fantastic organization, and the cohort of artists they have are really, really outstanding and important to Chicago. So I was very humbled to be a part of it. But I created a dance video from my apartment, which I have not left like in 3 months. And it does not feel inspiring, but I think my video is very like on the nose about that feeling, and it was hard to make it. So I had more fun editing it than making it. So I'm gonna show this to you. One moment. Let's Nope, wrong one. Apologies. Sorry, let me find this one moment. Oh, maybe I got rid of it. I'll find it in a second. There we go. Yeah, this is part of digital life. Can you hear it? I made this in collaboration with my dear friend Alvin Cobb Jr., who is a producer and jazz percussionist. And this is not what we wanted to do for the festival. So this is what happens in quarantine. That's all. Yeah. See, when you don't have a live audience, you can do whatever you want to your video. I liked myself in reverse much better than forward.
The reverse was so cool.
Yeah.
I loved that. The effect of like momentum going the opposite way than you expect from gravity is so cool.
Thank you. Yeah. It's weird, like you get inspired in different ways. That's what artists do, right? Like I'm echoing still? No, okay. Yeah, when our structures change, we are resilient. We need to express, and it just happens differently, given the circumstances. And so, yeah, when I started our conversation by asking you to describe your log line or your dance background, like that feels limiting. It's always shifting, and our role in where we align ourselves is always changing and growing. So that's my log line now. All right. We have a few more minutes left. Neha, do you want to share something that you've been doing or something that you miss?
I can share, I can share the video of my Mandala Makers Fest piece from last year, just to give a contrast, I guess, between what's happening now and what was happening then when there was a theater. Okay, so I do screen share. Okay.
Yeah, Neha was a part of our first Mandala Makers Festival, and that was an all dance festival. So this year was very different. And my hope was, yes, for everybody to collaborate. So there was multidisciplinary collaboration, but that's very difficult. And it means more Zoom calls and more things that you're uncomfortable with in the digital world. So right now it's a community space. But I do hope that there is collaboration eventually.
So this is saying that in order for me to share my screen, I need to quit and relaunch live StreamYard. So I can do that, or I cannot, whatever you guys want.
Why don't you quickly do that, and me and TULI will talk for a hot second, but if it takes longer than a minute, yeah.
Sounds good. I'll be right back.
TULI.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to address a question that I know we wanted to talk about. Neha kind of touched on this already, but how do we see our art as being critical, as being a tool to criticize the structures around us, the forces around us. How do we see the specific set of our vocabulary, the set of forms and disciplines that we use to express ourselves as being essential to that critical expression?
Mm. Do you want me to go first?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, so, that question kind of hits me hard sometimes, because I really have to check in with myself, why I'm actually creating art. Because, you know, my training, there was no, I mean, I wrote about this you can read about this more in the portfolio that ASHWATY created for many of us artists. I mentioned how my training, I didn't get to that level, at least where improvisation or like self-expression is at the forefront. So everything that I feel like I performed or did was because I was told to. But I mean, I had ownership over how I did it, obviously, like I made those choices. But when I started creating my own work, I was definitely battling like why I was doing it in the first place, and what can this joy of movement, this, you know, this pure happiness that I feel, like what is its purpose? Like if I really want to create art just for that, I don't need to publicize it or you know, put it out there for the sake why. So especially with how times are changing, or you know, with external factors and like just overall getting older, I'm really having to assess how dance is in fact a tool, or my expression is a tool to uplift others or and whatnot. So I mean, I guess I didn't really answer your question, but I'm still trying to understand what my relationship to that is, because I can't just all of a sudden be like, you know, my work is it might not be a tool. I might not, that this is not the platform that I maybe even should use as a way to get, I guess right now COVID has made me question who I am as an artist, and the what am I creating and how am I creating? Is this, I'm really trying to be more conscious of the space that it's taking right now. Right. And the energy that it takes to put it out as well. Yeah, I don't think I answered your question at all.
No, you brought up a lot of points. I think like it's hard as an artist. Yes, I think as performers, we're there because we enjoy performing. And it doesn't necessarily come from a place of like criticism, especially if you're doing someone's choreography that they put on you. And then when you were learning dance, like the discipline didn't ask you to create. So that's kind of a new thing that we're navigating as like artists without, like in Bharatanatyam, like a guru being over your, like shaping who you are as an artist, or, you know, your ballet studio, whatever that is. Now we're kind of questioning that for ourselves and navigating that for ourselves. And I think, yes, one big thing is, are artists centering themselves all the time? And like, are we egotistical? And are we really criticizing things, or are we just vocalizing to be heard? And that is definitely something that we need to think about in every step of our process, to be honest, in every step of our process. Right. And I do question that from many, many artists, even ones who have very loud and like quote unquote critical voices. I do question where everything is coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like the work that I most recently presented was this, this journey of unpacking who I am and my place in this world, and checking in with, you know, my roots, why I am the way I am today, and how the artist or the person, the human that I've become, is interacting with others. So yeah, I think in that sense, the work that I have produced is, I'm using dance as expression to unpack.
Yeah.
And that will hopefully help, or maybe like inspire others to do the same. Yeah.
Definitely. We need to unpack ourselves.
Yes.
We need to examine ourselves, and hold ourselves accountable to being good human beings that are acting in this world to support and uplift, and yeah, do something good with what you got.
Right.
All right, so we have Neha. Do you have your videos?
I do. I just wanted to, I loved what you were just discussing, and I just wanted to chime in. This question, I come upon this question all the time of like, is the artist ultimately an egoist? And I think one question I come upon a lot in like the world of activism too is like, a lot of the times, unfortunately, when society is structured in a certain way, you live in that society. So, for example, we live in a capitalist society. So, like, I could be anti-capitalist, but like to tell you I'm anti-capitalist, I probably had to like wear clothes, and I had to buy them probably at a store that employs, you know, neoclassical forms of capital labor. And so it's just so confusing to me, and I don't know the answer to this or how other people are conceptualizing this, but like existing in a system while trying to critique it is very confusing, because you're ultimately reproducing the system just by existing in it, right? So it's like, how do we do that? Because I mean, I think about this a lot with regards to like the nonprofit industry or major players that have always been kind of the voice of keeping the activist movement going beyond the headlines. Like, they are the most heavily criticized for like their presidents, how much they make, their bonuses, their tax filings, XYZ. And it's just so interesting because it's like the people trying to do the most good, we will criticize the heaviest. And the people claiming or attempting to do no good, like, evade all sort of criticism because they're not even saying that they're doing anything good, which is one complication for me. And then the second is even those, you know, structures that are kind of fighting the very root of, like, for example, racism or sexism that are built on capitalism, they have to buy into capitalism to make noise. Like, they have to have funding and donors, and unfortunately, like, that's the world that we live in. So yeah, I really struggle with that question. Like, but to get your voice across as an artist, you have to like buy into this idea that more followers or viewers or more people listening to your story is what you're doing. Aren't you just feeding into the same thing you're trying to get rid of? I don't know the answer, but love that you guys brought it up.
Yeah. I think it's my gun that I do believe that honesty at every step of the process is really essential to being transparent about how you are playing out your role, how your actions are impacting the community that you're intending to engage with or uplift or whatever it is that you're doing. I think the performative part is a lack of transparency and vulnerability. And so I think artists are equipped with vulnerability if we use it well. And I think that we can be powerful if we start from there. Okay, Neha, now it's your turn.
All right, so let me share the screen again. All right, is that working?
I have data.
Can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. right, so that was a clip. That was my a bit of the piece I did last year for Mandala Makers Fest, and was kind of the beginning of my official, foray into this world of trying to explore how Indian rhythms and rhythms that originate in Black culture speak to each other. That was a Bharatanatyam hip hop. So I guess that wasn't clear,
yeah. I mean, watching that, I miss like lighting and the space and the audience, and I think it's very cool that you have continued that research and have gone more into like an academic, like archival route as well. I think I don't know of much research being done about like music from that era in the relationship with Black music and South Asian immigrants. So I'm very excited to see the next phase of your work.
Thank
All
you.
right.
That's very nice.
Sorry, Neha, go ahead.
I just said thank you. That's very nice. I'm excited too. Let's see what happens.
I think we're about done on time here, but thank you so much. It was just nice to connect about our passions, and I know we could talk forever, but we don't want to drag the audience into it. So those of you who are listening, thank you. Please witness our work in this virtual time. That's all we got. That's all we have, is you tuning in and watching us on your screens. We're still figuring out why we're doing our art.
It's true. Yes. Well said. But that's the work. That's the work.
It is the work. Yeah. Okay.
The forever journey. It will continue.
All right. Thank you, everybody, and have a good afternoon. Congratulations on sharing your work with us in this virtual space. It's an honor to have you be a part of it. So,
yeah, thank you, ASHWATY and Mandala.
Yeah, thank you so much for your work. I don't know the degree to which the audience, for those watching, are aware of how much ASHWATY did to make this happen and coordinated all of us and helped us all with ideas. Your work is truly like impressive. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Please support these two artists as well as all of the artists who collaborated with me from Mandala Makers Festival. You can support their work on their site by witnessing, by donating. May we invest in you all as a generation of artists so that you can continue doing your work. And much love. Goodbye.